Omar Villafranca joins us now from Dallas. So, Omar, were people surprised by this guilty verdict?
They were, Anne-Marie, in the case because it was a murder conviction. Usually there's lesser charges, maybe a manslaughter or maybe even a negligent homicide, some lesser charges. But this was an actual murder conviction. There hadn't been one here in Dallas County in decades, and just in the last 10 years, this is the second one handed down to a police officer in an officer-involved shooting. So that surprised a lot of people. Some of the attorneys I talked to and people around the courthouse thought that he may get manslaughter and the 2 aggravated assault charges as well, because murder is such a high bar. But the jury unanimously decided to convict him on that murder charge.
And I know his partner testified. How pivotal was the testimony of Tyler Gross, and what happens to him now?
A lot of people were pointing to that moment, especially the prosecutor. The prosecutor brought it up in closing arguments, saying that his partner didn't feel threatened at all. His partner didn't fire his weapon, and he was the one that was supposedly in danger. People are pointing to that as one of the proverbial nails in the coffin for Roy Oliver in this case. As for the officer, he is still going to be working for the Balch Springs Police Department. The question is, how is he going to be treated after this? But Oliver was fired, something we should note. He was fired from the Balch Springs Police Department after the shooting because he violated their code of conduct, which was you can't fire at a car that is moving away from you, and he did that. So he was fired. Then, of course, the criminal charges came down.
Right, and we also saw in your piece that the family of Jordan Edwards is very emotional after the verdict. Can you tell us what they've been going through, their fight for justice over this past year, and what's next for them?
It's been a little frustrating for them talking to the attorneys. The family did one quick presser, but the judge is kind of pushing back on them because they want to get the sentencing phase done. But they've been frustrated for as long as it took. Before, the defense was trying to get a change of venue, trying to get it to move. There were several delays. They finally started and had their day in court and picked a jury. They say they're obviously glad that the jury came back with a guilty on the murder charge, but the family put it into perspective. This does not bring their 15-year-old son back. Jordan is still gone. What they're focusing on right now is their other children and family and those other kids in the car. One of the driver was Jordan's stepbrother, Vidal. He's in college now, and he's away in Colorado, and they still talk to him to make sure he's doing okay. But he even told his parents he wakes up at night, he has trouble sleeping. It is something that has really shook him. And mind you, he's just a teenage kid. So the family knows they've got to work on Vidal and make sure he's okay, and those other kids in the car are okay for the future.
Yeah, of course. And what about the community? You said that people were somewhat surprised at the guilty verdict for murder. I'm wondering how the community's reacting, what the relationship is like with the police. Well,
it was interesting because the judge before, just in the courtroom, was saying, please no outbursts when we read the verdict. If you feel you cannot contain yourself, please leave. So everybody who was inside and outside had to kind of mute themselves, even though there was audible gasps and cries. We heard one person outside of the courtroom yell, yes, they were happy that it was a murder conviction. Members of the police community are shocked. I did talk to one attorney who works here with police officers, and he's concerned that this is going to send a chilling effect to officers who he says are trying to do their job. But there's a lot of people in the community, and even the attorney for Jordan Edwards, Darrell Washington, said this kind of puts police on notice that, he said this was for Tamir Rice, this was for Alton Sterling. This is one of those cases that they believe can really change the conversation. One thing that a lot of people aren't talking about here, but that both sides have said is important, body cameras. There are still police departments and sheriff departments that do not have body cameras, and this body camera that was worn by a smaller police department ended up not only helping the prosecution improve their case, they're saying it's pivotal and could be pivotal for future cases. So the body camera here is really going to affect, because usually it turns into he said, she said, and if one party is shot and they're not around to give their side of the story, the body cam can talk for them.
Yeah, totally. That certainly indicated what direction the car was driving in, that it was driving away. Yeah. Sentencing is next. He's facing a lot of years in prison. I know you'll continue to cover this case. Omar Villafranca, thank you.
Thank you, Anne-Marie.